This is RT International, 8 p.m. here in Moscow, 8:30 in the evening now in Afghanistan. And that's where we start this hour. Ballot counting's underway after a tense day of voting there under the shadow of the Taliban's terror threat. It's set to take several weeks before the successor to President Hamid Karzai is named. Let's go live to Kabul, shall we? RT's Lucy Kafanov gauging the latest developments there for us. Hi, Lucy. We saw a lot of violence leading up to election day today, but it didn't hurt turnout at the end of the day, did it?
It certainly did not, Kevin, at least on the surface. Saturday's vote so far exceeded expectations. Millions of Afghans defied Taliban threats to cast their votes. There was no major security incidents to speak of. Now, overall, an inspiring and exciting day. Despite that threat of violence by the Taliban, despite the bloody run-up to this election, Afghan men and women came out in droves to cast their ballots. We did hear from the Independent Election Commission earlier. The official tally is 4 civilians killed, 43 wounded in Taliban attacks within the past 24 hours. For Afghan security forces, 7 soldiers killed, 9 policemen. And I have to say, for Afghanistan, this is a relatively bloodless day. We won't know for the exact count for quite some time, several weeks perhaps, but officials do estimate record turnout. 7 million Afghans cast their ballot out of some 12 million eligible voters. That is, of course, nearly 60%, much higher than what we saw in the last election. One of the biggest problems, however, not violence that emerged from today's election, has been the shortage of ballots across the country. This is likely a sign of either high voter turnout, but ballot stuffing could also explain it. And this is, of course, a huge concern here, because if a large number of Afghans feel they've been deprived of the right to vote, they could reject the results of this election as illegitimate. But on the ground, we're hearing a lot of excitement and optimism about the future, at least for now.
Well, looking ahead to the future is a good time to look back at the past, the last 12 years under Hamid Karzai's watch. Corruption's been rampant, as you're saying, the threat of violence ever present. Are people in Afghanistan hoping for better under a new president?
Everyone you speak to here is hoping for better. The question is whether they're going to get it. The challenges, of course, are going to be quite huge for whoever ends up leading the country. The next president won't have the benefit of billions of US dollars in aid and thousands of international forces to help with the security situation. The economy at the moment is very much dependent on international support, and this will be at risk when the 2014 NATO withdrawal deadline comes to pass. The Taliban insurgency, despite the relatively calm day today, remains a threat, and the next president will have to attempt to navigate some sort of a political resolution with this insurgent group, especially if he wants to get the economic situation under wraps. And the questions do remain about whether this is feasible. And of course, to tackle the corruption that still remains rampant here, also a major challenge. And so as for who that next president will actually be, well, the answer may be weeks, if not months away. But let's take a closer look at who some of the candidates are. Tradition runs deep, and that's where frontrunner Ashraf Ghani comes in. Ethnically a Pashtun, he stabbed a former warlord as a running mate, a man even he described as a known killer. Uzbek militia commander General Dostum, accused of brutal killings in the civil war of the 1990s. Up next is Dr. Abdullah, the runner-up in the fraud-riddled 2009 election. But one of his vice presidential picks is backed by a leader of the notorious insurgent group. The other is a former militia leader who's been accused of human rights abuses. Low-profile candidate Zalmay Rasul is a longtime technocrat in Karzai's government. The outgoing leader has not publicly endorsed anyone, but Rasul is touted as his top choice. Abdul Rasul Sayyaf is known as the man who brought bin Laden to Afghanistan, a hardline Islamist and a former jihadi warlord, although now one of the country's most powerful anti-Taliban voices. Finally, America's once favorite warlord, Gul Agar Sherzai, nicknamed the bulldozer for his ruthlessly efficient way of getting things done. Whoever wins has a world of work ahead. This aid-dependent economy is likely to take a hit with the departure of foreign troops. Corruption is pervasive, and the Taliban are still waging an insurgency. Lucy Kafanov, RT, Afghanistan.
Of course, millions of Afghans have been affected by war during the last 12 years of US occupation. Now, Lucy's travelled across the country with a camera to take some snapshots to give us a real flavour of what life is like there now. These are some of the pictures she took. Let's take a look. This woman you're seeing there lost her daughter in a Taliban attack on a guest house a week before the election. Now, this 12-year-old was shot by the Taliban, is now recovering in hospital. There he is. while this mother you're about to see now on screens resorted to burning scraps of cardboard in a Kabul refugee camp to keep her children warm, is because firewood's an unaffordable luxury. Just a tiny, tiny snapshot of what life is actually like there for so many people.